Hypothermia. A significant and potentially dangerous drop in body temperature. The most common cause is prolonged exposure to cold. Hypothermia can have causes that are due to an underlying disease. Examples include cold exposure or extreme physical exertion. Pain is temporary. It may last a minute, or an hour, or a day, or a year, but eventually it will subside and something else will take its place. If I quit, however, it lasts forever. I don't believe in pain management anymore. I believe in trying to cure persistent pain. Remember, the world is here for you. On the channel biography there is an email address. You can write, record yourself, and share the world your pain anonymously. The term is from Greek hypo, meaning under, and thame, meaning heat. The opposite of hypothermia is hypothermia, an increased body temperature due to failed thermoregulation. Hypothermia is defined as a body core temperature below 35.0 degrees Celsius, 95.0 degrees Fahrenheit, in humans. Symptoms depend on the temperature. In mild hypothermia, there is shivering and mental confusion. In moderate hypothermia, shivering stops and confusion increases. In severe hypothermia, there may be hallucinations and paradoxical undressing, in which a person removes their clothing, as well as an increased risk of a heart stopping. Hypothermia has two main types of causes. It classically occurs from exposure to cold weather and cold water immersion. It may also occur from any condition that decreases heat production or increases heat loss. Commonly, this includes alcohol intoxication but may also include low blood sugar, anorexia and advanced age. Body temperature is usually maintained near a constant level of 36.5 to 37.5 degrees Celsius, 97.7 to 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit, through thermoregulation. Efforts to increase body temperature involve shivering, increased voluntary activity, and putting on warmer clothing. Hypothermia may be diagnosed based on either a person's symptoms and the presence of risk factors or by measuring a person's core temperature. The treatment of mild hypothermia involves warm drinks, warm clothing, and voluntary physical activity. In those with moderate hypothermia, heating blankets and warmed intravenous fluids are recommended. People with moderate or severe hypothermia should be moved gently. In severe hypothermia, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, ECMO, or cardiopulmonary bypass may be useful. In those without a pulse, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, is indicated along with the above measures. Rewarming is typically continued until a person's temperature is greater than 32 degrees Celsius, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. If there is no improvement at this point or the blood potassium level is greater than 12 millimoles per liter at any time, resuscitation may be discontinued. Hypothermia is the cause of at least 1,500 deaths a year in the United States. It is more common in older people and males. One of the lowest documented body temperatures from which someone with accidental hypothermia has survived is 12.7 degrees Celsius, 54.9 degrees Fahrenheit, in a 2-year-old boy from Poland named Adam. Survival after more than 6 hours of CPR has been described. In individuals for whom ECMO or bypass is used, survival is around 50%. Deaths due to hypothermia have played an important role in many wars. Signs and symptoms. Although there are many categories, signs and symptoms of hypothermia. For example, 1. Mild. 2. Moderate. 3. Severe. 4. Paradoxical undressing. 5. Terminal burrowing. Signs and symptoms vary depending on the degree of hypothermia, and may be divided by the 3 stages of severity. People with hypothermia may appear pale and feel cold to touch. Infants with hypothermia may feel cold when touched, with bright red skin and an unusual lack of energy. Behavioral changes such as impaired judgment, impaired sense of time and place, unusual aggression and numbness can be observed in individuals with hypothermia. They can also deny their condition and refuse any help. A hypothermic person can be euphoric and hallucinating. Cold stress refers to an abnormal body temperature with low skin temperature. Signs include shivering. Cold stress is caused by cold exposure and it can lead to hypothermia and frostbite if not treated. Prevention. Staying dry and wearing proper clothing help to prevent hypothermia. Synthetic and wool fabrics are superior to cotton as they provide better insulation when wet and dry. Some synthetic fabrics, such as polypropylene and polyester, are used in clothing designed to wick perspiration away from the body, such as liner socks and moisture-wicking undergarments. Clothing should be loose-fitting, as tight clothing reduces the circulation of warm blood. In planning outdoor activity, prepare appropriately for possible cold weather. Those who drink alcohol before or during outdoor activity should ensure at least one sober person is present responsible for safety. Covering the head is effective, but no more effective than covering any other part of the body. While common folklore says that people lose most of their heat through their heads, heat loss from the head is no more significant than that from other uncovered parts of the body. However, heat loss from the head is significant in infants, whose head is larger relative to the rest of the body than in adults. Several studies have shown that for uncovered infants, lined hats significantly reduce heat loss and thermal stress. Children have a larger surface area per unit mass, and other things being equal should have one more layer of clothing than adults in similar conditions, and the time they spend in cold environments should be limited. However, children are often more active than adults, and may generate more heat. In both adults and children, overexertion causes sweating and thus increases heat loss. Building a shelter can aid survival where there is danger of death from exposure. Shelters can be of many different types. Metal can conduct heat away from the occupants and is sometimes best avoided. The shelter should not be too big so body warmth stays near the occupants. Good ventilation is essential, especially if a fire will be lit in the shelter. Fires should be put out before the occupants sleep to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning. People caught in very cold, snowy conditions can build an igloo or snow cave to shelter. The United States Coast Guard promotes using life vests to protect against hypothermia through the 50-50-50 rule. If someone is in 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius, water for 50 minutes, they have a 50% better chance of survival if they are wearing a life jacket. A heat escape lessening position can be used to increase survival in cold water. Babies should sleep at 16 to 20 degrees Celsius, 61 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and housebound people should be checked regularly to make sure the temperature of the home is at least 18 degrees Celsius, 64 degrees Fahrenheit. You can't go through life allowing pain to dictate how you behave. I met someone who wants to share the world her pain. Hear from her.
Hi. My name is Eleanor. I'm a witness of hypothermia incident that happened at Galveston Beach Island years ago. Although I live in the neighborhood, but witnessing someone go through pain is not as easy as some people might think it is. That very good day, I felt pain that's not mine. For people who might not know or where Galveston Beach Island is at, Galveston is an island city on the Gulf Coast of Texas. It's known for moody gardens, where giant glass pyramids house sharks, monkeys and other animals. Amusement rides and restaurants line Galveston Island. Historic pleasure pier on the south shore. West is bird-rich Galveston Island State Park, with its trails, kayak launches and fishing spots. Stewart Beach and East Beach are on the island's eastern end. The Galveston Island Beach Patrol, GIBP, is certified as an advanced-level agency of the United States Life-Saving Association and is the designated lifeguard service for the city of Galveston. It is a Texas Department of Health certified first response agency employing over 100 people comprised of lifeguards, senior guards, supervisors, peace officers, and dispatchers. The mission of GIBP is to protect the 5 to 7 million people who visit the Galveston beaches each year, respond to aquatic emergencies 24/7 365 days, educate the public about beach safety, and be a good community partner. Some Texas local might probably remember the story from a couple of years ago about the little girl who suffered mild hypothermia after swimming in the beach water on a day when the water was 58 degrees, over spring break. I was fortunate to have a long conversation after the incident with her mother and found out there was much more to the story than we originally thought. The details will be of interest to all parents who take their children swimming in the cooler months. From what I gather from the mother and father of the little girl, the parents didn't do anything different than any reasonable and careful parent would do, and they still had a pretty close call. The family stayed at a hotel on the seawall. The dad took their 12-year-old girl across the street to the beach. I can't remember exactly what she said, but sounds like there may have been another kid or kids involved. It was a beautiful, sunny, warm day and they sat up on the beach while the girl went swimming. She was in the water for about half an hour and then came out chilled. She's a thin and very athletic girl without a lot of body mass. Dad brought her back to the hotel and the kids were playing in the heated pool and then went to the hot tub to rewarm since the girl was still cold. The parents became concerned when the girl couldn't warm back up. Her hands stayed white and she was blue around the mouth. At one point the girl lost vision. Rescuers were called and stayed with her until she warmed back up and was feeling back to normal. Upon hearing the mom's account directly, I was struck by how this story had an almost serious outcome, even though the parents did nothing irresponsible. It's rare that we have a sunny day in the 70s while the water is so cold. Normally people that swim in cold water warm back up easily. The combination of the girl's body composition and water temperature were no doubt contributing factors. My guess is that she was having so much fun and the air temperature was so warm that she didn't pay attention to warning signs as they developed. It's also probably rare that she swims in water that cold, so neither she nor her parents realized her limits. People vary greatly in how resistant to hypothermia they are. There are many contributing factors, so the same person swimming in the same temperature on 2 different days may react differently. The problem and danger here is that the way you treat mild hypothermia versus more severe cases varies considerably. Normal things we all do to warm back up when we experience normal mild hypothermia can actually be dangerous for more severe cases. Fortunately, this case ended up fine and was merely a learning experience and a chance to warn other parents how to avoid a similar incident. Goodbye.
Causes of hypothermia. Hypothermia usually occurs from exposure to low temperatures, and is frequently complicated by alcohol consumption in elders. Any condition that decreases heat production, increases heat loss, or impairs thermoregulation, however, may contribute. Thus, hypothermia risk factors include substance use disorders, including alcohol use disorder, homelessness, any condition that affects judgment, such as hypoglycemia, the extremes of age, poor clothing, chronic medical conditions, such as hypothyroidism and sepsis, and living in a cold environment. Hypothermia occurs frequently in major trauma, and is also observed in severe cases of anorexia nervosa. Hypothermia is also associated with worse outcomes in people with sepsis. While most people with sepsis develop fevers, elevated body temperature, some develop hypothermia. In urban areas, hypothermia frequently occurs with chronic cold exposure, such as in cases of homelessness, as well as with immersion accidents involving drugs, alcohol or mental illness. While studies have shown that people experiencing homelessness are at risk of premature death from hypothermia, the true incidence of hypothermia-related deaths in this population is difficult to determine. In more rural environments, the incidence of hypothermia is higher among people with significant comorbidities and less able to move independently. With rising interest in wilderness exploration, and outdoor and water sports, the incidence of hypothermia secondary to accidental exposure may become more frequent in the general population. Alcohol consumption increases the risk of hypothermia in two ways: vasodilation and temperature-controlling systems in the brain. Vasodilation increases blood flow to the skin, resulting in heat being lost to the environment. This produces the effect of feeling warm, when one is actually losing heat. Alcohol also affects the temperature-regulating system in the brain, decreasing the body's ability to shiver and use energy that would normally aid the body in generating heat. The overall effects of alcohol led to a decrease in body temperature and a decreased ability to generate body heat in response to cold environments. Alcohol is a common risk factor for death due to hypothermia. Between 33% and 73% of hypothermia cases are complicated by alcohol. Water immersion. Hypothermia continues to be a major limitation to swimming or diving in cold water. The reduction in finger dexterity due to pain or numbness decreases general safety and work capacity, which consequently increases the risk of other injuries. Other factors predisposing to immersion hypothermia include dehydration, inadequate rewarming between repetitive dives, starting a dive while wearing cold, wet dry suit undergarments, sweating with work, inadequate thermal insulation, for example, thin dry suit undergarment, and poor physical conditioning. Heat is lost much more quickly in water than in air. Thus, water temperatures that would be quite reasonable as outdoor air temperatures can lead to hypothermia in survivors, although this is not usually the direct clinical cause of death for those who are not rescued. A water temperature of 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, can lead to death in as little as 1 hour, and water temperatures near freezing can cause death in as little as 15 minutes. During the sinking of the Titanic, most people who entered the 2 degrees Celsius, 28 degrees Fahrenheit, water died in 15 to 30 minutes. The actual cause of death in cold water is usually the bodily reactions to heat loss into freezing water, rather than hypothermia, loss of core temperature, itself. For example, plunged into freezing seas, around 20% of victims die within 2 minutes from cold shock, uncontrolled rapid breathing, and gasping, causing water inhalation. Massive increase in blood pressure and cardiac strain leading to cardiac arrest, and panic. Another 50% die within 15 to 30 minutes from cold incapacitation, inability to use or control limbs and hands for swimming or gripping, as the body protectively shuts down the peripheral muscles of then limbs to protect its core. Exhaustion and unconsciousness cause drowning, claiming the rest within a similar time. Hypothermia has played a major role in the success or failure of many military campaigns, from Hannibal's loss of nearly half his men in the Second Punic War, 218 BC, to the near destruction of Napoleon's armies in Russia in 1812. Men wandered around confused by hypothermia, some lost consciousness and died, others shivered, later developed torpor, and tended to sleep. Others too weak to walk fell on their knees, some stayed that way for some time resisting death. The pulse of some was weak and hard to detect, others groaned, yet others had eyes open and wild with quiet delirium. Deaths from hypothermia in Russian regions continued through the First and Second World Wars, especially in the Battle of Stalingrad. Civilian examples of deaths caused by hypothermia occurred during the sinkings of the RMS Titanic and RMS Lusitania, and more recently of the MS Estonia. Antarctic explorers developed hypothermia. Ernest Shackleton and his team measured body temperatures below 94.2 degrees, which spells death at home. Though this probably referred to oral temperatures rather than core temperature and corresponded to mild hypothermia. One of Scott's team, Atkinson, became confused through hypothermia. Nazi human experimentation during World War II amounting to medical torture included hypothermia experiments, which killed many victims. There were 360 to 400 experiments and 280 to 300 subjects, indicating some had more than one experiment performed on them. Various methods of rewarming were attempted. One assistant later testified that some victims were thrown into boiling water for rewarming. To anyone living in persistent pain, it is possible to overcome chronic pain. You do not have to learn to live with it, or manage it. You can treat it and change it. No matter how out of reach this may seem, know that it is true. You can if you think you can. Positive self-talk is to emotional pain as a pain pill is to physical pain. Life comes with pain. Do not give up on yourself. Remember, the world is here for you. On the channel biography there is an email address. You can write to us, or even record yourself, and let the world know you exist. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Catch you later.